you're going to put him in a spot, a right guard, that he's not comfortable with. He's clearly not comfortable with it.
Right.
You're basically forcing the kid to do something that he doesn't want to do. Okay, so I don't want to really criticize Pete too much because, and Kyle, you've heard me tell this story. I've even put it in my article about Stan Brock, the former All-Pro offensive lineman for the Saints in the 1980s, who, when he first got drafted, looked like garbage. I mean, there's no nice way to say it. He looked horrible, and he was getting Archie Manning killed out there in his first couple of years. Well, 5-6 years later, Stan Brock was a perennial All-Pro. So I don't want to write off Pete and say he's a bust and all that. But you do have to wonder after seeing that performance. But let's give him a benefit of a doubt. Let's see the young man play in one spot and stick to that spot and not have the coaching staff shuffling him around back and forth. And then maybe he can get some a little self-confidence going and stabilize that spot. But to me, the bigger issue is Zach Strief, because you've got to get that guy out of there immediately. And for the Saints, I guess because they're out of loyalty, out of respect, and all that's great. I mean, look, Zach Strief's a warrior. Okay, he's a warrior. I don't want to detract from the man personally or anything, but on the football field right now, he is a tremendous liability, and the Saints need to act quick.
Well, let me ask you this, guys, because I've heard the argument played different ways. And even last week, we brought up the fact that Coach was saying that maybe if we would have just kept the young man at one position throughout the whole training camp, we would see some improvement, right? Because if you play at a consistent level, a consistent place, you're comfortable with playing at that particular place. Do you believe, because I heard Deke and Bobby debate this, do you believe that Zach Strief is the best choice that we have at right tackle? Or would it have been better to just keep Pete at right tackle and play somebody else at the guard level on the right side? Because that position is more flexible with Sergio Clemente possibly playing that position than anyone else. Absolutely. There's no question about it. And that was the original plan. That's to me, that's the biggest problem I have with this whole thing. I'm always going to get knocked for being critical of the Saints, so I don't care. I'm just going to tonight. I'm just going to tell you what I really think and not sugarcoat anything. The bottom line is this organization drafted that kid to be a right tackle. That was your plan. That was the original plan. He was going to replace Strief. So why a year later are you putting him next to Strief at the guard spot and leaving Strief there? It defies logic. That's the whole problem I have with this whole scenario, with this whole thing. Why? Why are you doing this? You had a chance to draft Cody Whitehair, the number one guard prospect in the entire NFL draft, was on the board when you made that pick. Michael Thomas is a great pick. So I don't want to say they made a bad move, because obviously Michael Thomas is going to be a superstar and he's going to set him up at wide receiver for years. But still, when you did that, you passed on the number one guard prospect. So it's kind of a dual-edged sword, and I get that because you're darned if you do, darned if you don't type of thing, and so I get that aspect of it. But bottom line is, you still passed on the number one guard prospect in the draft, and now it's coming back to bite you on the butt. And you could have had Cody Whitehair and Andrews Pete on the right side of that offensive line and been set for years on the right side of the line. Then you had Armstead already on the left side, so then your only weak spot, quote unquote, would have been left guard. So because you got Unger already at center. So you could have literally solidified that offensive line, not only for Breeze, but for the quarterback after Breeze for the next decade, possibly, depending on if they re-sign, don't become free agents. So, but they didn't take that route. Well, and also, we can't pass up on this. They passed on the young man from LSU. He's right in your backyard. Yeah. You had 7 rounds where you could have at least picked him up and made a choice.
A seventh-round draft pick on him would not have been bad. Go ahead.
Right. No, you're right.
So, I mean, the Saints made this bed, and we're lying in it right now. So, it's...
Well, after listening to you, you know, I understand where you're coming from now. I mean, my answer would have been different before I listened to you just now. Because I was under the impression that when Pete was drafted, he was drafted because of his versatility, because they could move him all throughout the line. But now, after listening to you, I have to agree with what you said, because my whole philosophy about offense is it starts with the offensive line.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've said it every year I've been working on this show. If you want to win games, you need fat guys up front to push the other guys out the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the key to it. So I got to agree. You would have had 4 strong players on the line had you made that draft. I mean, yes, like you said, the guy Thomas is amazing, but you know, if Breeze doesn't have anybody protecting him, I mean, how many times is that ball going to get to him?
Right. You know, and that's what concerned me, guys. And when the Saints were near the goal line where we were, with their backs to us, and that's when Clowney made that sack on Breeze.
Not checked.
Man, Pete was just obviously beaten on that play, right? But there was another time where I believe Streif gave way to Clowney when they put him on the other side as well. So, but there was also a video showing where Clowney picked Streif up and just put him on his backside. And I was like, oh, man, this happened again. This is preseason, and it happened, Barry. So
exactly.
That's what is really concerning.
It would be different if it was just an isolated incident. And you say, hey, look, man, the kid's 10 years younger than me. He got the best of me. Hey, okay, you know, he got that one. I'm going to come back though the next time, and I'm going to neutralize him, or I'm going to show him that this old man still got something. You know, that would have been different. But this is a pattern. This is happening over and over and over and over again. So why would you leave the man there? Why would you keep leaving him in that spot? It just doesn't make sense. And, you know, people get mad at me because I'm critical of the organization. Well, of course I'm critical, because they're doing something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Just
so, you know, what else can I say?
Yeah, well, I mean, stay true to yourself, man. You know, Barry, you and we got reamed this past weekend with some articles that I wrote as well. So, but it's all good in the hood. Well, Professor, welcome to the show, man. Good to hear you. Professor? Okay. He'll be in.
That Derek again.
Yeah, you know, he's probably trying to find the mute button on his head. So anyway, you know he's gonna get me, right? But anyway, guys, Remy, I mean, when you saw and listening to what we're talking about now, man, the Saints have to really take control of what's going on. Now, a lot of people say the defense didn't do all that bad. But I'm concerned, and I want you guys to just listen to what I have to say. The Saints played against an offensive line that had 4 second stringers playing that night, and only Nick Fairley was able to register a sack. I'm concerned. You understand? And I think that is something that has not really been addressed, man. We played, our best guys couldn't hardly put pressure on their second string guys. What are y'all thoughts?
Well, personally, I'm looking more. I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll be quick, and then you can jump in there. I was just going to say that basically, you know, outside of Rankins and Fairley, I mean, you got to look at what they have. Now, obviously, we know what Cam Jordan is, but Anyemeta, is coming from a Canadian college, so he didn't play Division I ball. He just learned how to play the sport, 4 or 5 years ago. So, he's got a long ways to go. Now, I know he's a raw talent, and I really didn't, be honest with you, I really didn't pay much attention to how he did Saturday night. Obviously, I'll be able to watch him Friday night.
Okay. He did okay. He did do okay.
He did all right. Okay, well, that's fine. So, but he's not going to be, he's not. Look, and if he turns out to be a star in due time, that's possible. But I just don't see him making that type of an impact this year until he actually learns how to play the American game. There's a lot of nuances between playing Canadian ball because of the way they line up off the line of scrimmage, and other type of technique issues that you have playing off the ball in Canadian ball as opposed to the American style. So he's got that to digest, so to speak. And then, I like what you got coming off the edge with Edibali, but Edibali, you never know if he's going to stay, if he's going to stay injury-free or not. If Edibali can play a whole season without being hurt, then there's potential there. But clearly, he's playing B. He was never intended to be option A. And I don't even think, honestly, Kikaha was going to be plan A. I think what happened was that when the way the draft fell, I honestly think I'm certain that Rankins was going to be the top pick. That much I'm certain of, even though I was kind of clamoring for Shaq Lawson, which I'm kind of glad it didn't work out now because he already got hurt in Buffalo. But I think that their plan originally, maybe in that second round pick, was going to be a speed rusher. And I can't say the kid's name escapes me. He went to Tampa Bay. The one from the Senior Bowl. I can't think of his name now. He was at Ohio State, and it's a shame I forget all these kids' names after the draft. But I think he was their target originally, and then Tampa Bay took him. I want to say 2 picks ahead, and so when they did that, it left Michael Thomas was still sitting on the board, and then they decided, well, look, here's our receiver that we've had an eye on too, and then they pulled the trigger on Thomas. So that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's exactly how that went down, but I think that their original intention was to go defensive line with the first pick, and then edge rusher with the second pick, and then bam, bam, knocked out you've rebuilt your pass rush in 2 picks, and just your first 2 picks alone, you've rebuilt your pass rush that you didn't have the year before.
Okay.
And like I said, so with I can't think of the kid's name.
You talking about Spence?
With him. Huh?
You talking about Noah Spence?
Yes, Noah Spence. Thank you. Yeah, I honestly think because they love that kid. They took him to dinner. They did. They weren't worried about his issue. Of all the players you've seen with drug issues, that we've seen them all get suspended since they've come in the league. Every single one of them. He's the only one that stayed clean. And it's because, the kid's been clean for like 6 years now. I think it is 5 or 6 years. And he's in a program and he's been true to the program. And Urban Meyer vouched for him. And you already know how close that Coach Payton is with Urban Meyer. They have a good working relationship, obviously, because he drafted 2 Ohio State players.
Right.
So Noah Spence, they were very high on the kid. I can tell you from everything I've heard and everything that I've been told. So I think Noah Spence was going to be that second round pick. And when he went a few picks ahead, then they decided, okay, well, Michael Thomas is still there. Let's take him, which, still, like I said, is a good pick. But it just goes to show you how your draft strategy can literally affect your team months or years down the line. It's just the way it happens sometimes. But
yeah, you're right.
So I don't think Kikaha was their original choice. So when he got hurt, well, everybody's plan B, plan C, really. So I totally understand your concerns, and they're well founded. But until we really see, in the regular season, let's see how they look in that first game against the Raiders. Let's see how they look the following week. you know, and then I could probably give you a little bit better answer. You already